Hey guys, this is GamerCow. Welcome back to Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate Armour Set Showcases. This time we're not actually going to go over a mix set because I have another full monster set that I really enjoy playing with the light bowgun. So I've very often seen, especially in response to some of the generic Blademasters sets like Home Blade Gears and maybe like the Uku and stuff like that, that a lot of people ask, well, what about gunners? You know, what general sets do gunners have? What is there an equivalent to this that I could use which is general purpose and doesn't have to be super tailored? Well, the answer is yes and no. There isn't really one set that works for all gunner weapons because bows work very differently to both types of bowgun, and even then heavy bowgun and light bowgun do work fairly differently because of the rapid fire aspect of the light bowgun. So it's a bit difficult to suggest just one set for all of gunning, but for bowguns, the Black Diablos gear is a surprisingly versatile and very general purpose gear that I've just enjoyed using an awful lot in my time playing. Look wise, it's not really anything to sort of write home about. It really isn't that great looking, but that doesn't really matter when it gets the job done. Yeah, I have the Black Diablos heavy bowgun too, but I've never used it because I don't really like heavy bowgun. I'm a light bowgun person and that's kind of how it goes. But it still has some really good skills for heavy bowgun too, should you be inclined to do that. So let's take a look at the armor itself. You can see the resistances here are actually really good. The ice res is the only negative one, and it is a big negative, don't get me wrong, but it's not unmanageable. You can eat that out. Feline Icebreaker as a skill, and I believe that would reduce it all the way down to +3. So very good gear in terms of resistance, is really good for taking on the Wrath species because of the 25 fire res, and it has decent defense. This is all the way up until needing Divine Armor spheres, so all the spheres that you can get at G2 when you'll be fighting Black Diablos at the end of that. And 441 defense is pretty solid for a gunner, I will say that much. And yeah, that just generally works out to keep you alive against most monsters. You can even survive against a regular Gogmasios, Tar Blast and stuff with this. So pretty solid on that front. Even better when you defend some. So then we look at the skills, and this is why it's not a bow armor, is because of the Recoil Down here, but you may end up gemming that out anyway with some of your other stuff. But you have reload speed +2, recoil down +1, and weakness exploit straight off the bat. Dragon attack down doesn't usually matter too much when it comes to bowguns. There are very few times where you will actually be using dragon shots, and this armor isn't the best for that. We'll go over an armor that's really good for dragon shots in the next part. But reload speed +2 is fantastic, especially for heavy bowguns, because they tend to have very high reload speeds, or very slow reload speeds I should say, so it's nice to have an increase in that. Recoil down +1, usually recoil and reload speed will cancel each other out, but this armor has points into both, which is really nice. And then weakness exploit's a good damage increase. If your shots are hitting a spot with 45 or more % damage on the monster, you'll do 5% more than you normally would. You'll need to look these things up, unfortunately, but stuff like Kiraniko or the pings decks will give you the charts so you can see. But basically, hit weak points on the monsters and you will do 5% more damage, which is really nice. However, whilst that doesn't look too impressive, and the slots are good but not ridiculous, the extra skills here, the extra points which are not complete, where this gear comes into its own. You have 6 points of normal up and 4 points of evade distance with the armor as well. Now, normal up will normally cut down recoil if you gem it in, so you'll want to have a charm that does normal up to finish this off. 4 points or more is not too difficult to get on charms. I have a lot of different ones that can do that. Evade distance is something you can gem in because there is a lot of slots on the middle pieces of this armor 2 of those 2 slot pieces can give you evade extender, which is really good for heavy bowguns, and is still nice for light bowguns too. Being able to sidestep things more easily is always a good thing. So evade extend, very good skill to have around, and being able to easily gem that in makes this gear extremely versatile. So now that we've seen the basics of the gear, I want to take a look at some of my sets that I made with this, and we will take a look and see how the skills match up. So it's obviously very charm dependent, but if you have a charm that does normal up and attack like I have here, which is a normal up 5 attack 10, then you can get a pretty cool looking set with you know, the same skills we had before: the reload speed, the tenderizer, the evade distance we've gemmed in now. Recoil is still there, which is good if you decide to use status shots or crag shots and such. But now we have attack up large, and we also have normal up. So with this particular bowgun, the Azure Rafflos bowgun, it rapid fires normal 2s, and it fires 4 of them at a time. So it's pretty strong when you have weakness exploit to hit, you know, like the head on Zinogre, for example. You can get more damage out of that. You've got your normal up, so that you increase the power of those normal shots, and you've got attack up large. Even though this thing is defense honed, it does a ton of damage when you hit the right spots on the monster. And that's of course ignoring the fact that it rapid fires fire shots, which can be really good against stuff like Gormagala. And yeah, you can see this has got 6 active skills on it, which is pretty solid. The Dragon Attack Down is not a factor with this particular bowgun because it can't even fire dragon shots in the first place. So the only negative skill on this armor is not relevant at all. That is usually the big reason why people go mixed armor sets instead of just straight sets, because the straight sets almost always have a negative skill as well. But in this case, when the negative doesn't actually apply, and as you can see it's grayed out, it really makes things very straightforward in terms of keeping yourself on top of it. You get all the positives and none of the negatives. Very good. Now, it's not really a surprise at this point. I really like the God's Archipelago light bowgun, and the 2 slots that it has affords a slightly different take on the gear here. Now, this one actually does get affected by Dragon Attack Down, but it doesn't rapid fire dragon shots, this bowgun, so I never use dragon shots with it. I honestly think the dragon shots are kind of a waste of time if you can't rapid fire them, because you cannot carry enough of them. You can carry at most 13 rounds for dragon shots, and it just doesn't work unless you can rapid them. So yeah. With that said, however, we do have even more skills in this one because I have a slightly more ridiculous charm for this. I have, like I said, normal up 4 is all you need on the charm itself, and I happen to have normal up 4, destroyer 5 with 3 slots. So I can gem in Partbreaker into this gear, and with gemming in Partbreaker and Evade Extend, using a 2-slot bowgun instead of the 1 slot from before, I'm able to gem in any skill that has a 3 points for 2 slots ratio. So I've chosen Trajectory as my one for this because that works very well with normal shots. So Trajectory basically more than doubles the distance you can be away from a monster and still be in critical distance. Critical distance, for those who are not too aware on bowgun stuff, is where you're in the correct distance away from a monster to do maximum damage. The screen shakes, you do at least 50% more damage. I think it's actually like double damage compared to being really far away from the monster. So you want to stay in that distance at all times, but that can sometimes leave you uncomfortably close to certain monsters, and Trajectory is a way of solving that. Works best, like I've said, with normal shots. Pierce shots have a longer critical, further critical distance anyway, so yeah, the normal shots of the God's Archipelago, which rapids just the same way as the Azure Rafflos one did, it works out very nicely. The Recoil Down isn't quite as useful on this gun, although it does regular fire some rather lengthy shots, so like Paralysis 2 and Sleep 2, you can use the Recoil Down for that, which is really good. And of course it still has the weakness exploit. Part Breaker is really nice for shooting difficult to reach areas like the wings on Fatalis, if you are so inclined to use a bowgun against Fatalis. And of course it still has the usual benefits of Evade Extend, weakness exploit, and a reload speed up, which is super good. Reload speed up actually works very well with the Gods Archipelago, because with +2 it means you have the absolute fastest reload speed possible, so you can just keep on hounding your enemy into oblivion. It's really good. The last set I want to look at is one that's maybe a bit more specific for capturing monsters, but with my gear it works out quite nicely. So I have a normal up 6, speed setup 6 charm. It's actually not speed setup at all, it's normal up and attack down, but normal up 6 free slot lets me put in the speed setup stuff, which is really good. And that allows me to have Capture Guru and Trapmaster, which obviously makes it a lot easier to capture stuff. Nowadays I would probably try and put the Craftsman specs in here instead of the Diablos cap, and then just try and get the skills back, you know, through gemming and stuff like that. But for those who have not done the Arena Quest gear and whatnot, all you really need is a free slot charm here, and maybe normal up if you can get it, like normal up 4 free slot would do, or any speed setup 6 with 3 slots would work, so you could then gem in normal up. You don't really need the Recoil Down, which would be removed by gemming in normal up, but it works out quite nicely, because Capture Guru, you paint shot on the monster, then you look for when the icon is flashing, and you can capture the monster much more easily, and it just helps for getting stuff like Rathalos mantles. So yeah, that's another sort of take you can have on this, which just shows the versatility of the armor. You could put a whole ton of stuff in here if you wanted. Obviously, protection is something you could use. Any skill that takes 2 points per 1 slot will work with something like this. Very versatile setup depending on what you need. So there you have it, that is the Black Diablos gear. Hopefully you have enjoyed yourself listening to this. If you do want to get into bow gunning, then I would recommend making this set first, because it kind of covers the basics of the stuff you would need. If you want to do pure shots and things, well, there are other gears that you can use, but normal shots are the easiest way to learn about gunning, to learn with the weak points and whatnot, so I would suggest using this to start with. So this has been GamerCow showing off one of my favourite whole sets for once, and next time we'll take a look at how to utilise dragon shots in the bowgun world. Till then, take care.